Hello and welcome back to the Scooter Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. That's not my name. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, we got Tylee and
His own name.
my own name. Wow.
Sometimes it really be your own self.
We got.
Luckily, this is just a mini episode, so Bobby will only have the opportunity to call himself Babs for the rest of this 30 minutes.
We got Tylee, we got Jameson Maxwell. And Jameson, look, we needed a special episode after that Kansas State loss. So what time is it? Is it time for a Cruitin Corner?
Jamison.
Yes.
What is this?
Jamison.
This is a
Cruitin Corner with Jamison.
Everybody dancing.
Oh, that's nice.
Well,
See, we used to do little Cruitin Corners at the end of each episode, Bobby. But this deserves its own little episode because David Hicks moved up his announcement timeline from the All-American game in January to this coming Wednesday, September 28th. That is a huge, huge sign. I think everyone who pays attention to recruiting knows, and if you aren't, that's totally fine, knows that this means he's pretty much slotting it to go to OU. It was known before this whole process that if he was going to consider to come to OU, he might move up his timeline. And him moving up his timeline doesn't mean he's feeling better about Texas A&M. That's definitely not the case. He wouldn't want to be getting the Texas A&M boat earlier. He's wanting to get to a very full, almost complete OU recruiting class. And that's why he's moving up his timeline to go public right now. And did you guys see if he commits what we would be in the national recruiting rankings if he committed right now?
2, correct?
Number freaking 2. So yes, K-State loss hurts, but at least this should be a nice pickup for us in the middle of the week.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be enormous. And that was one of the bigger things, even though the recruiting class is almost full. Getting Hicks in, solidifying that, especially with what a commitment means to Brent Venables, to this Oklahoma team, having him in to boost this class up to 2, to shore up that recruiting class and maybe get a couple flips. It's major. It's massive.
I mean, having a guy that is a top 10 player in college football commit to Oklahoma is a big deal to begin with. But having that be the number 1 defensive lineman in the country and in the Houston, Texas area being in Katy, Texas, that's a huge, huge get. That has been Texas A&M's wheelhouse. And we know they've given him a significant NIL package that if he were to accept it, he'd get paid. OU must be doing something really well on the NIL front behind the scenes because it seems like we are being in the play for a lot of these big guys. I understand we lost out on Jordan Raynaud to Alabama. It's hard to beat out Alabama for a defensive line commit. That's just, if you get offered from Alabama for that position, it's just, you can't say no. But having the point where we're getting guys that Texas A&M usually would have gotten the past couple years makes me feel like I feel pretty good about our recruiting department for years to come. Like, do you think we're I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think we're shelling out big bucks and we're kind of playing the same NIL game that a lot of these other teams are? Or do you think it's more these kids are really buying into what Venables is preaching?
Yeah, here's what I have to say, right? And this is some deep level analysis. We have a lot of people don't know this. We have the smartest listeners and viewers in any podcast sphere and YouTube video. I guess we do those now ever, right? So they're going to understand this one. And what I have to say about recruiting, right? Is it money? Is it something else? I have to say this, okay? You guys might recognize the name Jerry from Tom and Jerry. He was a mouse. Squeak, 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 squeak. That's what mice say, okay? Right? When you're trying to get someone to do something nefariously, maybe against their will, against their best wishes, right? There's something called mice: money, ideology, coercion, ego, and extortion. Certainly we're not extorting people, okay? So maybe, I hope we are, though, because all options should be on the table. Bama extorts people, you know it, and that's why they win championships. So are we paying people money? Yeah. I mean, objectively, yeah, we're doing it above board now. But are we getting all our recruits that way? No. Are we extorting any of them? There's a Fifth Amendment says we don't have to answer that question. But some of them, it might be an ideological motivation. It might be something like, hey, you can come here. You can bring this team back to greatness. We haven't won a national championship since you've been alive. It's been 22 years now, coming up on 23. These recruits, 17, 18 years old, they haven't lived to see an OU national championship like we, the learned elders of society, have as 25, 26, 27-year-olds. Maybe there's some coercion. Maybe there's an appeal to ego, an appeal to ego upwards is what we would call that, is sort of like what I just exampled. Hey, you can be the star that brings us back. Or, like I said, an ideological thing. You can be the one to be another player in the history of this blue blood. So there are certainly other motivating factors. Certainly, maybe there's other things, we're not going to mention because we're an advertiser-friendly podcast. Shout out to DraftKings and Raycon headphones and any other future advertisers. I know Raycon will be down with this, but DraftKings, I don't know.
God.
But there's some other things that motivate
a
high school age guys, maybe motivated by some stuff other than money.
My
that
God.
Ty. I also want to say
we're going to kick him out.
Ty.
Yeah, we're using motivating factors, certainly.
Yeah, Ty, I also got to say, I think David Hicks is a Schooner Pod listener, because I think there's absolutely no coincidence that he made this announcement that he's going to make the announcement on Wednesday, the exact same week we floated the idea of not an assassin pool, but
a bounty gate is
the
what you're
talking
talking about.
No, the bounty, our bounty NIL collective that we were forming from last week.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Do you not remember? Do you not remember your bounty NIL proposal that we started an NIL pool for bounties, like to take people out?
That sounds like something.
This sounds like a good guy.
Which Bowden Blake is. What he is professionally, he's an attorney, and that is my answer to what you've just said. Is I would like to speak to an attorney. Back to James.
We got thousands of hours of us just talking nonsense on the internet. So it's not like anyone can find anything that we've said that's stupid. But yeah, so I think this Hicks thing's a big deal in terms of clout, because the story that's going to be the whole week. OU moved up to number 2 in the recruiting rankings. They got the best defensive lineman in the country. Like, even though we just lost to Kansas State, this is a team and program that young kids, high schoolers are buying into. But should we be concerned a little bit that, we still have some battles to fight? Markedly, Peyton Bowen, that a loss like this for a guy that came out and saying, I am not going to make any kind of decision on flipping my commitment until I see this OU football program play. We come out and we play our first big, opponent where we're within 2 scores in the betting. I guess Nebraska was within 2 scores, but a reasonable opponent, because obviously Nebraska wasn't, and we lost at home. Does that freak me out a little bit for a guy like Peyton Bowen who's watching this? Would he rather just stay at home? I obviously, Notre Dame might not be doing the best this year, but Texas A&M is another team that's pushing for him, and they can pay the big bucks, and it does scare me a little bit on his front. I think that's something to keep in the back of our mind. But I think with Hicks announcing early, to be completely honest with you, that is going to create such a rush within this recruiting hemisphere that I wouldn't be surprised if Bowen said, I'm done playing this game. I've been coming to OU every other game day, it seems. He was here at that Kansas State game. I'm going to come join the movement, add another 5-star to this recruiting class, and be one of the best recruiting classes that we've ever seen at OU, and definitely the best one since we've been tracking it.
It would have to be the best, without a doubt, I believe. I think
other than the Barry Switzer ones, this one would be by far the best one that we've ever had. And we already kind of talked about that in the past. I think by the numbers, we already are the best recruiting class that we've ever had. And we have 2 5-star guys that are probably, in my opinion, favorites for Oklahoma. Obviously, Hicks is a large lean for OU, and I'll be absolutely floored if he ended up not committing to us on Wednesday. But Peyton Bowen, I feel like, is that new thing that all OU fans are going to be latching in on. He's going to be that new obsession that we had, with Hicks. Like, when is he going to flip from Notre Dame? It just seems like Notre Dame isn't that school that he was going to end up with. Is it going to be Texas A&M or is it going to be OU? Is he going to follow his, Denton Geyer teammates and come over with Jackson Arnold, one of his best buddies? Is Eli Bowen going to come over with him too? I really, really hope that this can get OU fans back to an optimistic point of view during a time where a lot of fans are really in the dump and they're continuously, beating us down.
Yeah, no, I agree that could be absolutely huge. That is really the best way to look at it. And we talked about in the last pod about how this team this year is really forward thinking. It's future thinking, and getting recruiting wins, getting all that's as important as anything. Even though we don't know how these guys will pan out, obviously you can't 100% predict how a player is going to be, but it's such a good indicator of where the program's going. I think more so than whether or not we lose to Kansas State or not in year one of a new regime.
Yeah, and Brent Venables is really good speaker. He can get guys and turn them and make them believe a lot of things. We've listened to his press conferences, and we've seen a little bit of his locker room speeches. He's a great motivator. He's a great speaker, and I guarantee you that's rubbing off on the recruits. He can turn this for the positive. Obviously the easy answer to this is imagine if we had, our guys that we're recruiting right now that we picked and this kind of defense that we're running here. It would be special. Yeah. This is my first season here, and I'm playing with some guys. I'm not going to talk down on my guys that I have right now, but this isn't exactly how I want it. You, Peyton Bowen, you, David Hicks, you are the kind of guys that I want to play with. I can, he can bring up all of the past great defensive linemen that came through Clemson and how they went, first round draft picks. He has got plenty. And will have some even that he has next season that he recruited himself. It's going to be special. And I think he can turn this to a positive towards those recruits.
Yeah. And I'll say this, I think the atmosphere helps. I think I don't know about you, but I felt like that K-State game, awesome. Even though we lost, the energy was still there. I thought it was still exciting. The light show is cool. Ty, what do you think? Do you think the atmosphere plays anything into this?
Yeah, certainly. I think there was a lot of national negative press last year with our previous sort of atmosphere and everything else with booing a starting quarterback and what that might mean for things. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. It's crazy to look back and think that was a major storyline at the time with everything that's occurred in between. But I did want to say when it comes to this recruiting class now, this initial one of the Venables era, it's important to note that these are guys that commit this year. They, in the most part, show up next year and then are ready to play the year after that. This is the core of the guys that are going to be our initial entry into the SEC. Maybe not the first guys starting when we initially show up, but really our entrance into the SEC and what that means. So it means so much to this team, whether guys pan out or not, that we have a number 2 nationally class coming in to where we're going right now. Because right now we're in a liminal space, a space between where we are and where we are going, where we are still, outdoors, but we're heading indoors, so to speak. We're in one of those doorways where there's 2 doors, right? We're in the area. We've left the parking lot, which is the Big 12, and we're standing next to all the shopping carts and the Germex, and we're about to go into the store. And that's the SEC. The SEC is the store. That's where the fruit is. I love fruit and vegetables.
Here we go. We're talking about
cheese. I love cheese. I do love cheese.
Talking about groceries.
I love cheese so much. But yeah, we're in the entryway right now, and these new players are going to be the ones that are going to be shopping for cheese with us. So
we've talked about tonight. We've talked about groceries, leftovers, mice, cheese. We've talked about cheese. I think on
all this. It's all connected. Are you not seeing?
If we lose again,
it's all connected. Mice,
Look.
cheese. Cheese is a grocery. Mice love cheese. It's all intertwined.
Can we take a unanimous vote right now? If OU goes like 5-7, then we convert the Schooner Pod into a guys grocery games recap podcast. Or
I
just
love guys
recap.
grocery games.
I know. That's why I think it would be a unanimous vote. Yes, I think we just start talking about cheese and pineapples and whatnot.
Guy is one of my idol. But let's move on to our last
that's
point.
That's goofy because that's what we already do. But anyways,
yes, that
back
is
to
true.
Jameson.
We're very off. I think it's kind of an aside to move on from the Hicks and the Peyton Bowen thing. Hicks should be committing on Wednesday, but to be honest with you, let's keep on watching for the rest of the near future for Peyton Bowen, because there's gonna be a lot of hype and pushing to get him to decommit from Notre Dame and publicly commit to Oklahoma. So let's watch for that, and that will be our new thing to look forward to in the future. But I think we want to end our recruiting episode with one last story that Ty really wanted to talk about. Ty, kind of talk what you think about this T.A. Cunningham business out in California.
So here's the thing. As we all are sort of familiar, if you're following OU recruiting, there is a guy in high school right now, very highly rated recruit who plays a football position named T.A. Cunningham. And he is from the wonderful state of Georgia. Many people have been to Georgia. Many people love Georgia. I'm one of those people. Great state. And he has been bamboozled, like many people in the past, grapes of wrath, to move to California. And he has moved from Georgia to California, apparently with some really bad deal. It seems he has been scammed by some sort of NIL, allegedly scammed. There is a pending lawsuit that Jameson will dive into more, and obviously we will see more as that develops, but allegedly scammed by some sort of NIL collective promising a lot of pay if he played for a certain high school in California that I don't know off the top of my head. I know Jameson does.
Los Alamitos.
So he's been allegedly scammed by this, and now he's stuck out there, does not have a place to live. He was living with the head of this NIL collective, who has now been arrested for allegedly very terrible, not making a joke, allegedly a very terrible crime. And he's just seems to be in a very bad position. There seems to be some attempts by OU fans and the OU fan base to rally around him. I've been seeing conflicting reports on whether or not he is homeless. I think technically by the definition he is. There's a lot at play here, and certainly a lot unspoken, but I guess that's maybe a good intro. I'll pass the baton to Jameson to carry the rest of the story.
Yeah, I hate that this is happening to him. This is a guy we really adopted in our pod to really like. We loved how he had Baby Chop on his recruitment visit with us. It's this little plush toy that he got from Walmart, probably, because I saw a bunch of Baby Chops, and those giant like little wired things in the middle of aisles that have like just rows and rows and rows of toys in them. I saw a bunch, like hundreds of Baby Chops in one of them the other day, and it made me think of him. But this is really sad because why wouldn't he take this deal? Why wouldn't you go out to where the money is? If you can make money as a junior in high school to go play football, damn right you're going to do it. And you're going to go to a big-time program in Los Alamitos in California. And it seems like there wasn't enough documentation to where once he got out there and things kind of fell through, there was no fallback to where he could, save himself and not get screwed over. He moved right across the country for this. And now he's stuck where he can't play, and he's not getting the pay that he deserves. And it's crazy to think that NIL is in high school, but what did you expect? If it being in college, it's only a matter of time before it became in high school. The transfer portal is rampant in high school. You see it on a micro level, just in like Oklahoma football, high school. I like talking to coaches and just watching some high school football the past couple weeks. There's so many transfers, and the portal is very open.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really, a story that a lot of people should look at as a cautionary tale, because it's horrible. It really is. And, hell, we put him on our thumbnail one time. Look at him. Look at him holding Baby Chop. It was great. And it's just really sad to me that this happened, because he seems like a good kid. I don't think it's anything he did wrong. He just, I think, kind of got screwed over. Really, there's a really good article on the Athletic about it. It was really, really heartbreaking to read, honestly, and kind of surprised me to see. But honestly, just really hope that things can go right for him. But it is absolutely a cautionary tale, 100%.
I think the bigger story with this might not be as much him and his story, because obviously everything that happened to him was really sad and whatnot. But he's a 5-star athlete. He's going to be fine. Talent always will prevail. There will be some happy, not truly a happy ending, but there will be some kind of way where he gets out of this and unscathed. What happens to that 3-star kid who is, probably he's number 5 or 6 in the state of Oklahoma or something, and gets an offer to go play somewhere in Arizona, and this happens to him, and it just falls out? There's not going to be that same kind of benefit of having that 5-star national recruit where people are writing articles for you whenever you're the 600th, 700th recruit in the nation, and you only have a couple offers. That's the reality of the situation. And these kids are going to have to be really careful. And because when you're in college and you're signing NIL deals, you have college's resources for like attorneys and negotiators and whatnot for people to make sure that you're not getting screwed over. High schools don't have that. Well, you think you're going to go to your guidance counselor, they're going to help you negotiate your NIL deal? Like, no, these kids, college students, are extremely vulnerable to making stupid mistakes. Think about 16 and 15-year-olds. Like, are you kidding me? Like, some of these kids don't even have a driver's license. Like, this is a cautionary tale for many, many kids that, yes, go after and go get your bag if you deserved it and you earned it. But it's kind of a scary risk.
Well, and here's an important note that I do want to mention is I don't think he was the first one to happen. This has happened to, and Jameson brings up a good point. He's the 5-star. He's the one that was in the news before this, and therefore it makes news. And I think if you really dug into it, there's probably people that this has happened to before. And what he seems to allegedly have been scammed by is an NIL collective, and he doesn't have any resources, as it were, because he's per laws and regulations, he can't really fall under the umbrella of the University of Oklahoma or of any other university that he might be committed to. And it seems like what caused all this before things really started to unravel with that NIL collective and their founder and everything else was he showed up to California, and the school said, "Hey, wait a second. This is not above board in terms of how California laws work." There was some sort of, law where you can't move to a certain school to play football. Obviously, that gets worked around all the time, but those workarounds didn't occur in this case, or I guess it was far too overt and someone had noticed, and it seemingly never even made it into the school that he was intending to. And he had sort of been bamboozled entirely by this third party, again, allegedly. But we'll see as it develops. And it is important to mention also that he has a younger brother that I guess was looped into this as well. I think he's a year and a half, 2 years younger, not as highly rated, obviously a little bit younger. So who knows? But there's a lot of other people looped into this, and it's a very, very unfortunate situation. And hopefully, I sincerely hope that because he is such a highly rated guy, obviously, like we've talked about, he will certainly land on his feet from this. But hopefully, because it has happened so soon to a skylined guy, a high prospect, everyone knows him guy, that we get someone to step in. Because really, this is, I'm a big fan, and I promise I'm being short here, but I'm a big fan of Formula One, for example. And we love our F1 analogies, but the governing body of Formula One, one of their big roles that they do is driver safety. They have a lot of rules that manage the safety of the guys. And this would be a big shining moment for the NCAA that is certainly under attack and being doubted across the board by everyone, saying, what does this entity even do anymore? Because they've been so redundant and irrelevant when it comes to a lot of things in football nowadays. I think this could be a shining moment where the NCAA could come in and truly make a difference and truly have relevance if they stepped in and created some rules that were for the benefit of these players and these talents and these recruits. Because a lot of these laws exist at varying levels for recruits. But if the NCAA really stepped in as a governing body and said, hey, we had our past job, we obviously have reached obsolescence in a lot of the past things that we've done. We're going to take a more backseat role, and we're going to exist for safety. We're going to make rules about, say, helmets, about player safety, medical protocols, maybe even, or things like this, where we are preventing, very at-risk people coming from not the best backgrounds, getting scammed by literally, snake oil salesmen. There's no better analogy to move across the Atlantic seaboard to Pacific seaboard as far as you can move continental U.S. That would certainly be a great spot. So hopefully something like that occurs at some level, whether it's at the NCAA or the conferences or the universities band together. But we've seen in this example that certainly something must be done for the benefit of these guys, because it's just not right. It's not good for anyone. It's objectively terrible in every way.
One might call it the NCAA's one shining moment. I don't know.
All right.
But okay.
That's a good. Let me wrap all this up for this little recruiting mini pod. Yes, the TA Cunningham is an interesting story, but going back to OU, this Kansas State loss should not change anything with our grand picture. I think the big next thing to look forward to after this announcement on Wednesday from David Hicks is Peyton Bowen, Ryan Yates, and Malachi Coleman. And allegedly, there's going to be a big time visit of all these guys come Kansas weekend. So hopefully that weekend will be a very, highly looked at game in terms of media if Kansas keeps playing the way that they are. And we can kind of avenge this and have a good win and convince some recruits to get in the boat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. There's always another visit, always another recruiting trip. Just gotta keep winning. Gotta string some more wins together. But I think that's it, right, Jameson?
Yeah. Take us out.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening to this bonus episode of the Cruitin Corner. We'll be back soon to break down the TCU game with our pal Boat and Blake. But until then, we're heading out of here. Have a good one. Boomer Sooner, everybody.